What's clear is there's a lot of work to do to help Canadians and to ensure that Canada is prepared as a new administration takes shape.
Tonight, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has shuffled his cabinet, but questions still remain about the fate of the Liberal government.
We would like an open apology and written apology that you sent your army to attack our nation.
More than 34 years since the Kanesatake resistance, they're still looking for an apology from the government. And the annual Spirit Powwow was held in Winnipeg today. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had little choice but to shuffle his cabinet Friday after the departures of Housing Minister Sean Fraser and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland earlier this week. And a number of ministers were already taking on extra duties. But even though a number of cabinet positions have been filled, questions remain about the future of the Liberal government and the Prime Minister himself. APTN's Fraser Needham has this story.
Ministers came out in groups to address media at Rideau Hall after the cabinet shuffle on Friday. But the one person who was noticeably absent was Prime Minister Justin Trudeau himself. Gary Anasandagri adds Northern Affairs to his existing portfolio of Crown Indigenous Relations, replacing Dan Vandel. But Anasandagri was unable to answer what the future holds for Trudeau when asked.
What's clear is there's a lot of work to do to help Canadians and to ensure that Canada is prepared as a new administration takes shape in the U.S. As someone who's continued to serve as a minister, that is the singular focus that we have.
Earlier in the day, Jagmeet Singh released a letter. In it, the NDP leader says, no matter who is leading the Liberal Party, this government's time is up. We will put forward a clear motion of non-confidence in the next sitting of the House of Commons. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre held a press conference of his own, in which he also said it is time for Trudeau and the Liberals to go.
This cannot go on. With a U.S. president coming in threatening tariffs early next year, we cannot have a chaotic clown show running our government into the ground.
Other changes include Ottawa MP David McGuinty taking on public safety from Dominic LeBlanc, and Toronto MP Nathaniel Erskine-Smith becomes Housing Minister, replacing Fraser. Hetty Haidu remains in Indigenous Services. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
It's been more than 34 years since the Kanesatake resistance, also known as the Oka crisis. Recently, Justin Trudeau was reminded of it when he appeared before the Assembly of First Nations earlier this month. APTN's Savannah Craig has the story surrounding an apology.
We would like an open apology and written apology that you sent your army to attack our nation.
Earlier this month, Grand Chief Victor Bonspiel, on behalf of the Iroquois Caucus, asked Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for an apology. More than 34 years ago, the federal government called the military to Kanesatake in what would become a 78-day siege on the Kanien'kehá:ka territory. After the nearby town of Oka planned to build a golf course on land known as the Pines.
They want people to get hurt over a golf course. The Native people are fed up with being pushed around and our land taken.
The federal government sent 4,000 soldiers to Kanesatake and Kahnawake, but faced fierce resistance. Ellen Gabriel was at the front lines in 1990.
Many of us had our privacy invaded. We were called terrorists.
She says an apology is not true reconciliation.
Land back for me means that we have control over the lands, our traditional territories, and a say in what happens on those lands. And I don't think that the Canadian or provincial government is really ready to acknowledge that, even though legally we have that right.
This is not the first time an apology has been requested.
In case you're not aware, today is July 11th. This is the anniversary of the 1990 Oka crisis.
Kahnawake Grand Chief Cody Daibo requested it in summer 2024 to Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh during the Assembly of First Nations in Montreal.
Where your government marched troops into your allies' lands. There still has never been an apology about that.
Some traditionalists do not think the calls for an apology should come from the Iroquois caucus because it is comprised of band councils and not traditional longhouses, including Joe Diome, who was part of the negotiations to end the crisis in 1990.
I think it wasn't their place. It was the place of the people who were affected, which would be the traditional council in Kanesatake and also traditional council in Kahnawake, who were at the forefront throughout that whole summer.
Kahnawake elder Kenneth Deere says if there is an apology, it shouldn't only be the feds who provide it.
I think the mayor of Oka, who's passed away now, but I think the city, the town of Oka owes an apology for sparking this situation. Also, the Sûreté de Quebec, who enforced the injunction. Wild negotiations were going on.
And this ain't a surrender either.
After the crisis, the federal government eventually purchased the land from developers in the town of Oka, but it has not transferred the title of this land to Kanesatake.
This dark area right here is our current land base.
The Band Council of Kanesatake believes the return of land is a priority.
An apology may go to help alleviate some of the trauma associated with it, but the real work for us is going to address all of the problems that were existing before the crisis.
Apologies doesn't mean anything unless there's something concrete to correct the causes of all that, those issues that came up. And that means acknowledgement of the loss of the land and the return of the land in Kanesatake.
But some still see value in an apology.
This would be an apology to not just the warriors, but to all the families that were harmed in this.
APTN reached out to the Iroquois caucus multiple times to request an interview over criticisms about an apology from Trudeau. It did not respond before our deadline. Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Kanesatake, Mohawk Territory.
Well, we'd like to hear your thoughts on a possible apology for the crisis or anything else you'd like to get in touch with us about. Here's how to continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, you can send us an email to news@aptn.ca. You can read and watch our stories by heading over to our website. That's aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Athabasca Chippewan First Nation Chief Alan Adam had some strong words after the province's police watchdog cleared the RCMP officers who took him down in a violent arrest 4 years ago. Chief Adam was badly cut and bruised in the incident outside a Fort McMurray casino after he was stopped for expired license plates. The ACERT report says Adam assumed a fighting stance after his wife was grabbed by the arresting officers and threatened with a charge of obstruction. Adam accused the RCMP of being racist, but the report says the officers acted properly and there was no evidence of racism. In a statement, Chief Adam says, in part, ACERT's suggestion that race did not play a factor in the assault is laughable. These incidents do not occur to wealthy white people in Alberta. It goes on to say the message to police across Alberta is clear. There are no consequences for those who assault and murder Indigenous people. On December 18th, Saskatchewan RCMP and File Hills Police received a call about an injured man on Little Black Bear First Nation, about 130 kilometers northeast of Regina. Paramedics declared 20-year-old Devin Bellegarde dead at the scene. After the initial investigation, police ruled Bellegarde's death was suspicious. 20-year-old Danielle Panapikisik was arrested and charged with manslaughter in connection with the death. She's scheduled to appear in court on December 23rd in Fort Qu'Appelle. Saskatchewan RCMP Major Crimes is continuing to investigate. Coming up after the break, we'll sit down with National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak. Stick around. Welcome back. The National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations is wrapping up her first year in the role, and it's been another tumultuous year for the organization, including differing views on how to proceed with child welfare reform. We sat down with the National Chief, Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak, on Thursday. National Chief, thanks so much for being with us here. It's been a busy year. Your first as National Chief. Child welfare, of course, dominating much of that. A Chiefs Committee has been struck. Can you tell us where things stand with all of that?
Well, certainly. Look, we're having an executive meeting later on this afternoon, and I know that the Chiefs in Assembly had passed a resolution to create a Children's Chiefs Commission, and we certainly look forward to working with the Commission and helping them as much as we can. I mean, as National Chief, I think, my job, of course, was to get a draft, and we had done that at $47.8 billion, and that should be the floor. I don't think First Nations deserve anything less than $47.8 billion, and we lift up this new commission to go and push for more and to get more money and more, more policies changed, and we support them.
Separate from that, of course, is Jordan's Principle. The AMC having a big meeting here yesterday. More than 100,000 claims backlog nationally, according to Indigenous Services. What has gone wrong with Jordan's Principle, and how can that be resolved?
Look, I think Canada has to fix that, right? And I know that we were at the tribunal actually just moments ago before being in here, and I know that the tribunal, AFN was at the tribunal this week, as well as other parties on Jordan's Principle, and I know that they have to come up, Canada has to come up with a plan by January 17th, 2025, and look, we'll be there to try our best to push that along and to make sure that Canada is making the investments that they need to make.
It's been a busy first year in office, no doubt for you. It also looks like we could be in for a federal election before too long. Busy times. How do you reflect on the past year and the days ahead?
Look, I think we've had the Bloc Québécois come to our assembly. We've had the NDP. We've had the Liberal government, most recently with the Prime Minister and his cabinet, come to meet with the Chiefs in Assembly. We've had Pierre Poilievre join our Assembly in July. We'll continue to try and build relationships at the Assembly of First Nations with all political parties that want, and members of Parliament that want to work with First Nations. Certainly, I think for the Assembly of First Nations, we've had record numbers in July, and then in October, we had a special Chiefs Assembly, as you know, on child welfare, and I think that just shows, I think all of Canada was tuned into that moment. And I think that First Nations, one thing is very clear, that First Nations know that the child welfare system is broken and that it needs to be fixed. And I know that it's a legal issue that no government can ignore. And I know that we've had record numbers of participation at the Assembly of First Nations, and opinions are always diverse. But I think that that's a good thing because we're focused on First Nations issues that matter to First Nations. And I want to commend many of the leaders that come together. And even though the discussions are difficult, at least we're talking and we're finding our path forward together.
National Chief, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks for taking the time. Merry Christmas to you and your family and team, and all the best in the new year.
On behalf of the Assembly of First Nations, happy holidays. Thank you for having us.
This weekend marks 12 years since the Idle No More movement changed the Canadian political landscape. Founded by 4 women on the prairies, it quickly spread like wildfire across the country, catalyzing a new generation of youth-led Indigenous activism. And to help commemorate the 12th anniversary, APTN News has just uploaded our retrospective on the movement to YouTube. Titled "The Power Was With Us, Idle No More," The two-part feature-length docuseries can now be viewed from anywhere. Here's a sneak peek for you, a chapter from part 2.
Meanwhile, at Winnipeg's busiest intersection, on a New Year's Eve set to plunge to minus 28.
But I remember walking up to there, and there was already people gathering up at that famous windy, cold corner of Portage and Main. The amount of people who were there, who showed up and just stormed the intersection, I was really surprised by that there were so many people willing to do that. It was just a super cold day. I remember it being so cold you could just hardly take off your mitts and not have your fingers freeze. It was really, really cold winter that winter, especially in Winnipeg and in all parts of the country.
I remember being cold, wet a lot of the time.
Because it happened in the teeth of winter, right? It happened from December into January, when winter is, usually at its harshest.
I think maybe the cold just really helped solidify that unity and how determined people were to get out there and show their views no matter what.
I think in a way we have this arrogance about ourselves as as niche or Blackfoot or Cree or whatever, that we can handle any weather because we're from this land. This is in our blood, it's in our bones, and we have to put our bodies on the line. We have to, I think if things are too easy, then we don't feel like we're actually accomplishing anything. So the cold was just part of that. It just made us feel really strong and powerful and at home in our own lands.
Ole, was it ever cold? I remember every action in Thunder Bay was minus 45 when something was going on. That was a clip from part 2 of APTN News Retrospective. The Power Was With Us. Idle No More. The two-part feature-length docuseries can now be viewed on our APTN News YouTube page. I missed every screening of that and I'm really looking forward to it. Time for one last break, and then we'll take you to the 7th annual Spirit Powwow in Winnipeg. Stay with us. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. There he is, the mastermind of the annual APTN News Department Potluck. Wilfred Moore shares a smile before the news team and studio crew take part in the harvest. Wishing everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Big thanks to Wilfred, as always, and Shania for sending that in. Over the holidays, think of us and send a picture to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, +1 with snow in Halifax, flurries, and -3 in Fredericton. -17 in Kuujjuaq, 14 below in Nain. -12 in Montreal, 20 below in Val-d'Or. -6 with snow in London, 13 below in Sault Ste. Marie. -17 in Wawa, 12 below in Thunder Bay. -14 with snow in God's Lake and Norway House. -11 in Winnipeg, 10 below in Dauphin. -6 in Regina, Estevan, and Saskatoon. -6 in Meadow Lake, 12 below in Buffalo Narrows. In northern Alberta, -19 in High Level, 16 below in Fort Chipewyan. -1 in Edmonton, +10 in Lethbridge. 11 above with showers in Vancouver, 9 and rain in Victoria. 0 in Prince George, -2 in Smithers, -33 in Old Crow, 10 below in Whitehorse, -18 in Yellowknife, 29 below in Norman Wells, -22 in Sax Harbor, 25 below in Pawlatuck, -21 in Chesterfield and Baker Lake, -24 in Resolute, 25 below in Joe Haven. Winnipeg's 7th annual Two-Spirit Powwow is being held at the RBC Convention Centre today. The festivities kicked off this afternoon with a grand entry and an artisan market. The event is organized by Indigenous and 2S LGBTQ+ community organizations, including Sunshine House, Goniganijik, the Rainbow Resource Center, and Two Spirited People of Manitoba. Powwow aims to provide a safe and welcoming space for Two-Spirit and gender-diverse people. It started in 2017 through a crowdfunding campaign and has since become a yearly event with dancers, drum groups, and vendors. Gail Pruden is a Two-Spirit elder and jingle-dressed dancer from the Little Saskatchewan First Nation in Treaty 2. She says the powwow is a place of healing and an opportunity to connect with generations of Two-Spirited people.
It's important to have them because there's not that many out there. Even though, like each and every other powwow, Two-Spirit are welcome and we feel safe enough to be able to come in and enjoy the other dancers and all the grandfather drums that are there. Like there's so much medicine at every powwow. And I've been going to a lot of powwows, and because I've been dancing so long, it makes it a safer space for the younger generation to come in and feel safe and belong and be part of. Because this is where we find our healing.
And sad news to leave you with tonight as a Métis icon in Alberta passed away on Tuesday. Born in 1937, Muriel Stanley Venn became an important figure advocating for Indigenous women's rights. In 1994, she founded the Institute for the Advancement of Aboriginal Women and the Esqueo Awards, recognizing the exceptional accomplishments of Indigenous women. Some of her accolades included being the chair of the Alberta Human Rights Commission, the Alberta Order of Excellence winner, the winner of the National Aboriginal Achievement Award for Justice and Human Rights, and the first Métis woman to receive the Order of Canada. She is survived by 4 children, 3 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. And that is all the news we have for you for this Friday. Of course, for news anytime, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. And be sure to tune in tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Time for APTN National News Weekend. I'm Dennis Ward, Marcy Miigwech. Thanks for being with us. Stick around. Kim Sullivan is up next with our French language newscast. Have a great night.